Hello.
Hello.
How are you, Carmen?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Get up to anything exciting the last fortnight since I saw you?
The last fortnight.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I did a lot of baking for Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Did you get some challah on?
Yeah, I got my challah on. I
Nice.
did a really I did one regular, and you know this, but not everyone out there might know this. But for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, for the holidays, you do round challah rather than braided loaf. And I decided that I would make just one plain one, and then I put a second one and smeared the inside with cinnamon and sugar and brown sugar and butter and rolled it up like a cinnamon roll and then twirled it up. And
yes, so good.
It was so good. It was so good and really beautiful when you cut into it. And we had it, just the end of it, for French toast this morning.
Ooh, very nice.
Love it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. How about you?
Oh, not much. I actually, those of you who may follow me on Instagram at Dylan J. Usher, you may have seen that I have recently started loving to cook Korean food. And so earlier this morning, I went over to the H Mart in Central Square in Cambridge, stocked up on all my goodies to make fish stock and spicy things and all that, and I'm very excited. I bought way too much stuff and it was great. So
I can't wait to see what you make. Next time you go, get the chili crisp.
Yeah, I know. I need to get in that. I do.
Because even if you it's good on everything.
Yeah.
But it's really good on ice cream.
Really?
Vanilla ice cream, little chili crisp. Yeah. Hot tip. It's a hot tip in so many ways because chili is quite spicy.
Yeah, that would be so good though.
No, it's really great. I'm curious if I could
figure
out how to bake with it. I just haven't.
I'm sure you could top things with it, or do drizzle kind of thing.
Yeah, it could be an interesting sweet savory kind of thing, or maybe when you make those little take puff pastry and make those little roll-ups. Whatever, or I wonder if I could put chili crisp in that and roll it up and bake it.
Probably. Why not?
I'll try it.
You should.
And then we'll talk about it. I'll try it.
I'm so excited. All right. Well, this is a very exciting episode because we're doing bread today. And I gotta say, you are the person who taught me how to make bread.
Oh,
and it's when we did our audition for the Bake Off show, and we had to make bread, and mine was awful, and then I saw yours and it was beautiful, and I was like, how on earth did you do this? And then after we met up that second time, you sent me your solid bread recipe. Is it the same one
I made today?
It's
pretty much the same one. I did a few things differently because I always do a few things differently. But I remember your bread. Your bread, and it was more it wasn't awful. It was like ciabatta.
It needed work.
Yeah, it was not very tall, but it was holy inside.
Yeah.
Was it holy?
The way it should have been. It wasn't. Yeah. It was not blessed. But yeah, I'm very excited because I think bread is one of those things that can be so tricky for people, and so much about it that I'm ready for some serious hot tips.
Well, what's interesting is some of the things that I do are counter to what you're supposed to
do.
But that's part of this is something I think you would like to watch, and everybody in the internet world,
everyone on the internet.
So there's a show I've been watching, the Chef Show with Jon Favreau and the chef. I can't remember now.
Sure. Yeah. It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. But they did an episode just recently with Christina Tosi from Milk Bar. And they talked a lot about like the science of everything. Like we've talked about that like our last episode, and we'll talk about that a little bit this time.
Yeah.
However, one of the things she was just like, well,
Roy Choi, thank you.
Roy Choi, yes, Roy Choi. He has this children's book. It's so great. All this graffiti. He's amazing. Anyway, so they're talking about all the science of baking, which is great, but then Christina Tosi, she's just like, but there's also like a lot of intuitiveness that goes along with baking. That's not something that you learn like in a book or from a teacher. Really, you have to just like do stuff. Have bad things happen. Like the one time I made 12 loaves of bread and like let them sit for too long, and everything had risen and was like dripping off of my counter.
Overproofed,
like by a lot. So, but I mean, I think that like, but I learned from that, and I didn't do it again. Like I can't say I didn't do it again, but there's lots of crazy things that kind of go into baking that aren't just like the recipe on the page. So, actually, bread.
Into that?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so we're gonna do Conan's bread first. We're very excited.
All right, Mr. DJ, roll the tape. All right, so. So this is my setup. I don't always set up like this, but because I was like thinking through this video, I needed to make sure I labeled everything.
So those are labels.
Like those are labels. They're my little Post-its that are donuts and cupcakes. Because of course I have Post-its that are donuts and cupcakes.
Considering you are both a baker and a teacher, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Right? Yes. Yeah. Totally. So I did label everything. Normally, like I know this recipe. Oh, my scale. This is very important.
Talk about
bread, especially, like I almost always use a scale. There are occasional recipes that I found somewhere that use that I'll use the cups and whatever. But like the scale is really, really key. So here, this is, I put 2 of my flours in here. This is whole wheat flour and spelt flour. And I use about 100 grams of each in this recipe. So, and this is my bread flour right here that I've measured out probably about 500 grams or so. And then, so I'll put all of the flour together, before and of course, like for TV, I pre-weighed this. So this is rye flour. Rye flour is tricky. This is only like 50 grams maybe. If you add too much, it will be like Play-Doh. Like rye bread, when you make rye bread, it like has a feel of Play-Doh.
Yeah, it's kind of like gummy almost.
Yeah, it's gummy. It's very wet. It's very sticky. Rye has less gluten, so does spelt. But I find that it takes the flavor like seriously to the next level.
Yeah.
Totally. So
I love the like combination of different flours.
Yeah. It makes it like if you put your face when you're kneading it all together, it just has this real.
Ooh, look at this fancy tool you have.
Can you pause, Mr. Let's pause this. This it seems fancy, but it's kind of not. So it's a Danish dough whisk.
Yeah.
Now I use this for things not just dough. Like it's great for pancakes or waffles or breads, or it really mixes well. And it also, I thought I would, toss the flour around with this. Like I don't always use this, but I wanted to for this because it's a really cool tool to have in your baking toolbox.
Yeah, I have one and it's great. Yeah. It's super impressive. You also, I wanted to make sure we caught it, but you also tossed your yeast in there too, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. My yeast went in there pretty quickly. I use instant yeast most of the time because generally King Arthur flour tells me to.
Yeah.
I do what they tell me to do.
Yeah, it's fair. That's a good thing.
But instant yeast, you don't have to proof it in warm water or milk. You can just throw it right in. I mean, honestly, you can so that's a good tip for yeast. Like hot tip, if you can't find instant yeast, it's pretty easy to find, but if you can't find it, like just the dry, yeast is
active dry
is fine. And honestly, I don't always proof it in water either. Like you don't have to. I mean, certain recipes it helps. Instant yeast is very good if you're making pastry, like laminate, like croissants, brioches, those kinds of things. Brioche, like it acts. It's rapid. It's very fast. So, but I keep it in a big jar in my refrigerator. I buy it by the pound because
you're you.
#life. Yes, because I'm me. So, all right. So let's roll tape, Mr. DJ. So here's my Danish dough whisk, and I'm just tossing it just to incorporate the flour, the yeast, and everything. We're going to pause it again here real quick once I show the, not quite yet. Keep it going. So that's my salt. I'm not putting my salt in yet. That's a little bit of water. I'm going to put the salt in the water and dissolve it. If you can pause, please, I'll explain why. So that little tiny bit of water I took out of what I had weighed for the water, the milliliters for the bread. It's usually about 400 milliliters, sometimes a little more, give or take. Occasionally, like if I add more whole wheat flour, I need a little bit more water, or if it's really dry out, that kind of thing. That's the intuitive part that we're talking about, right? So like pay attention to your dough. Yes. This dough is going to be pretty sticky because that's how I want it to be. Like something like challah needs to be silky and stretchy and smooth and not sticky. But the salt in the water, I'm bringing it back around. So in the warm water, I dissolve the salt. It's probably about a tablespoon, which is kind of roughly 12 grams or something like that. Yeah. So I dissolve the salt in the water, and I don't add it to the dough quite yet. You're gonna see me mixing. Let's roll tape, and you'll see me adding the water to the flour, and I'm gonna mix it with my hand. I think I forgot that my dough whisk was sitting right next to the bowl, and I didn't do the initial with the dough whisk because I don't know, something distracted me. The children, the dogs, who knows.
So you got the water in there now.
Yeah, so I've got the water in there, and it takes a bit of time. It's very sticky. It's very gloppy, right?
Yes, gloppy is a great word.
Gloppy is a great word. I am wearing gloves.
Yes.
Not because of sanitation and COVID, but because I have a very strange allergy to metals. It's not strange. It's just, but a lot of bakers get this sort of eczema on their hands from having their hands in flour so much. And I have to wear gloves so my hands don't break out because whole grain flour has a very high nickel content naturally. That's a random fun fact.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not really fun. It's not fun for me. But but I wear gloves, especially when I'm baking this kind of bread because I use my hands for it. All right, so here we are. It's all kind of incorporated.
Yeah, it's brought together into a mass.
Yeah. And it's still pretty, it's kind of wet and gloppy. Now, see how stretchy it is? but not quite. It's still breaking a little bit, right?
Right.
Now, Mr. DJ, if you could pause for a moment, please. So it's starting to get kind of stretchy. I still haven't added the salt. I'm about to add the salt. But what you do, it's called, once you get all of the water incorporated into the flour, this particular loaf, I think I left it for about 20 to 30 minutes, which is enough. Like 20 minutes is plenty of time. But it's the period we like to call autolyse. Autolyse. It's kind of a fun word to say, right?
Yeah.
So autolyse is the process of the water being absorbed into the flour. Okay. You don't have to do that. I did it for this because I wanted to be able to talk about autolyse and what it was.
Yep.
But I don't do it every time. But I do find that it's really great for the gluten development. I mean, it makes
it better. If you have the time, it makes it better.
Yeah. If you don't have the time, don't do it. Put the salt in, wham, bam, mix it up.
Yeah.
And not all bread needs to have the autolyse. This kind of like
goopy, like stretchy
bread.
Yeah.
Benefits from it. So I've let this set for a little bit. Does that rhyme? I let this sit for a little bit. And if we can roll tape, I'll show you what you'll see. Loose rhyme. Yeah, there's a loose rhyme. I mean,
thank you for the Mr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. DJ. So I poured it in, and you'll see.
So this is the salty water.
This is the salty water.
Autolyse dough. Okay.
See how it gets all funny and bubbly and like squeaky?
Yes.
For lack of a better term, that's a technical term.
Squeaky.
But it takes a minute to really get it in the dough. Like you really have to make sure you work that salt water in.
And so it's fully absorbed. You don't have any water or anything around the edges. Ooh, that's so stretchy now.
But then pause please. I have to explain my shower caps. So I'll get
You're
to
not
the
about
shower
to put
cap
that
in
on your head.
But Dylan, you mentioned the stretchiness.
Yeah.
So after you add that salt to the water and you really get it incorporated, you can see how it will stretch and no longer break. That is how, like, the salt water and the bread, the dough that has sat, developed, like the gluten development happened, and then you added the salt and then stretch.
Magic. Beautiful.
I think there's something like there's a term for that. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's in a book somewhere.
Gluten development? I don't know.
Yeah, really. I mean, it is. That's what it is. It's the gluten development. I don't know. It gets stretchy.
Yes. Perfect.
So I have this funny system, and I recently realized that my cleaning lady this week thought that my shower cap that was on my kitchen counter was actually the shower cap and put it back in the bathroom.
Oh no.
It's fine. I have more. But I occasionally will buy shower caps and I'll spray them. You'll see me do this.
Yeah.
And they're just like the kind of cheap ones. I have bought like the really heavy duty ones, which I quite like. And I just sit it on the bowl, and it works real well, and you can reuse it rather than saran wrap over and over. Yeah, because the first rise you want that plastic over the top.
Yeah.
Rather than
to dry out or
right. I mean, you could, if you don't have saran wrap, or you're like not into using saran wrap or shower caps or plastics or anything like that, you can put a damp towel and then maybe like a dry towel over top. Just keep the moisture in. But anyway, let's roll tape and see my shower cap. So I'm talking. We fixed that. That's Pam. There's my.
Oh my gosh! It looks so big.
Yeah, it's so fluffy and big.
Nice.
But right there, I am heavily flouring the counter.
Yeah.
Heavily.
So how long did you leave that to sit?
So let's pause. I left that, let's see. You've got to at least leave it for 2 hours. Like
Okay.
or an hour and a half. Like I used about a tablespoon of yeast. So I think I left it about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
And of course that depends on your temperature and humidity and all of that stuff.
All the things and the amount of yeast. Like if you want to make something like this and you want to put it together in the morning and then bake it later in the afternoon or the evening, just use like 4 grams of yeast, or like what would be the equivalent of like a half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon or something. And let it sit, and then you can just deal with it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that can make bread. You can make your bread work for you.
I like that. Right? That's a good hot tip.
Yeah. That's make your bread work for you, because bread is the stuff of like, the people have been
literally eating the food of life.
The food, like literally for thousands of years, people have been making and eating bread. So make it work for you. Like if you don't have a 3-hour window to make it, for something like this, add less yeast and let it go all day. Yeah, just give it more time. So anyway, this, you'll see how kind of sticky it is and how I have to add a little bit of flour. Like this is another intuitive thing. Like, yes, you want to heavily flour your board,
right,
your counter, whatever, but just enough.
Right. It's like you can't really like explain it. You just have to do it. You have to screw it up a couple times, and you just have to like
and have like weird chunks of dried up flour in your thing. Yeah. So we can go back. You can show the flouring board, and I'm gonna shape it. I remembered having a very hard time shaping this. So nothing about see it stretch.
Yes,
see, that's some good stuff. Beautiful. Right there. Get it all out of the bowl, because that is what Martha Stewart and Julia Child told us to do.
Yes.
And so it's a pretty big blob. I'm going to add more flour. I just keep a little bowl there. Actually, it's a measuring cup. It was my grandma's.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of stretching and folding it over.
Yeah. So I fold it like an envelope and leave it for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
I like fold it like an envelope, put it face down.
10 minutes.
10
I saw you like math.
Yeah. So now 10 minutes is up, and here's where I'm going to have a terrible time shaping it. I don't know why
this is a big boy. This is
it's big, and I have minimal space on my counter. I probably should have put this on my table, but it's still, even with all that flour that I've added to the board,
sticky,
it's sticky. But that's
that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. So and you want that, because you'll see at the end how lovely and crusty, and I wish that there was I think well, I'll once we get I forgot. I'm gonna put put the flour on that. I just sprinkle a little flour on the parchment.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're cooking this on a peel, or how are you?
Well, you'll see. I'm going to. The last rise is about 20 minutes. I put it on the peel just because it's for transportation purposes.
Got it.
It's on the parchment for transportation. It's on the peel for transportation.
Yes.
Just because New York City kitchens, you need to transport things. This time you want that clean towel, kitchen towel, over top. The last rise.
Ooh.
Yeah. Lovely. It's nice and smooth. Normally, like sometimes you can use there's my bread lame.
Yeah.
You can use a serrated knife. It just has to be really sharp, and you have to go fast.
Yeah. This is always the trickiest part, is scoring bread. You have to just be so like decisive. You can't
Yeah.
you.
And I always want it to be fancy, and every time I try and make it fancy, it's a
It doesn't come
disaster.
out. It
Just
never
practice.
comes.
I have to do the practice.
All right.
All right. So,
Oh God.
pause,
Too many
Mr.
stuff.
DJ. So, I am going to be baking this in my Dutch oven. I have been heating said Dutch oven in my oven for the last 30 minutes to an hour at
So it's
450. It is hot.
hot.
You must preheat your oven for no less than 30 minutes with the Dutch oven inside it.
Hot tip.
That is a tip. I think a lot of people don't preheat their oven long enough. They don't wait for the ding-a-ding-ding.
Mm-hmm.
Because it will ding. It will tell you when it's preheated. Unless you have an oven from 1950 like my friend Amy.
Yeah.
It doesn't ding. But yours doesn't ding?
No.
Oh, okay. You just have to know.
I just know. Yeah. My oven also runs 100 degrees hotter than it says, but don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah. At least 30 minutes, if not an hour.
Yes.
In the summer, this is very difficult because it is hot
Yes.
out, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take your Dutch oven out, don't make the mistake that I have made a couple of times where I take off my oven mitt after I've taken off the lid and then go to grab it. Nope.
No. Ouch.
Careful.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to the tape and we'll see how I use the parchment as a sling. Oh my gosh, my bra strap. Oh, Lord, have mercy. All right, see all that steam coming out of there?
Yes.
That's great. That bread is going to go in there once you put the lid on, and it's going to capture all that steam. It's going to make it
From all the water inside of the dough, it's going to evaporate and get all steamy. Ooh,
Sling.
beautiful.
Sling.
Beautiful.
Careful to not burn yourself while you're
Yes. Love it.
making
Love
sure.
it.
This is you don't have to have parchment. I just find it as an easy transportation device. I'm reminding oven mitts, right?
Yes. That is a well-used Dutch oven.
Yeah, my cleaning lady keeps trying to get it clean, and it's fine. I like it. So here we go. Spanky's waiting. It takes a while. So this bakes for at least 30 minutes, approximately, and then another 10 or so minutes with the lid off.
Okay.
Which I think I'm going to show.
Yes.
We're almost there. Oh, there we go.
Ooh, yeah, but it needs to get browner.
We're waiting. Tick tock, tick tock. Yeah. So
this will feed your family for a week. This is a huge amount of bread.
Yeah. No, I bake on Sundays or Mondays, and that's our bread.
So. Look at that. It's so nice.
Now, you can see where it's turned up a little bit on the edges. This particular bread doesn't have a huge ear. Those are called ears. When it cracks and breaks.
Yes. Yeah.
Along the line there. Yeah. So I didn't take into account the fact that the sound in this see, there we go. Pause. All right.
Beautiful.
So when you take your bread out of the oven, something extraordinary happens. You take it out of the oven, you put it on the counter, and about 2 seconds later, it will start to crackle.
Yes. You can hear it just sitting on its own.
Yeah, you can hear it. Sometimes it's very loud. It's moisture escaping. I mean, it's called singing. Your bread sings, which I'm a singer, so I really like that.
All right.
But so when you make a bread like this, listen for the singing because it's really cool.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that I do have some holes here. There are the traditional what is it? Dan Levy. Not Dan Levy. That's Schitt's Creek.
I was gonna say, what? I don't
know. The Sullivan Street Bakery, no need
oh yeah.
Times thing. particular recipe will give you a very very high hydration and will give you lots of holes.
Mm-hmm.
When I make this type of bread that I've made just now, I don't really like all of those holes personally. I do that intentionally to not have all the holes because I eat it for my breakfast. And if you have all the holes, the jam falls through.
Right.
I like some
the
holes.
Practical. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this, it's a little holy throughout. I could have even baked it maybe a little bit longer now that I'm looking at it. But it has this really like hearty, weedy sort of flavor to it that is very satisfying.
Mm-hmm. It looks amazing. It really does.
You know, it makes a good breakfast. Yay!
Great job. Great job.
Oh,
thank you, Becker.
Thanks, Becker. So anyway, we can finish off our tape. I don't think I had a piece with jam on this one, but in this video. But there it is. My big cereal.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's good for sandwiches. It's good for eating.
Yeah.
You know, if you make a stew for dinner, you just top it up with that. It's great with cheese. I'm sure it'd be delicious.
Oh yeah, smear some brie on that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, with some prosciutto, you got yourself a charcuterie like situation with the. Yeah, it's
Lovely.
good stuff. It's my favorite.
Wow, that was real nice. That was real nice. Mr. DJ, before we go on to the next video, was there anything that we needed to pause for? And remember, we did that last time.
Oh yeah, for the commercial break.
Well, hi.
Oh, hi. He has a face.
I do. We do have a couple of shows coming up after yours this evening.
Oh yeah.
My bad. I should have briefed you, but I like coming on and saying hi.
At
6 o'clock, it's Once Upon a Doodle, which is drawing and improv put together.
Love it.
Cool.
Very fun show. It's family friendly, so you can watch it with kids in the room. And then at 7, we have a less family friendly, but it's still a very good improv show called Thank You for Coming, in which our host Mike Carr will bring in 2 improvisers that have never met before, never done improv before, and immediately throw them into doing a scene. So it'll be
very exciting.
So that's what's happening tonight.
Nice.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mr. DJ. All right, now go away. Thank you.
Now let's your recipe, your video is like brunch.
It's amazing. Okay, so I am going to show you all how to make classic New York style bagels. They are like a thing of my childhood. I grew up in Jersey before living in Boston, and this was like a staple. Almost every weekend we would have bagels from the local bagel shop. And I love baking them and showing people how to bake them because it's always been one of those things that I was like, there's no way you can make these at home. Like, you have to buy them in a store and they have to be good. They have to be like very particular kinds of bagels. So when I really started getting into baking, this was one of my I must learn how to make these. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job. So the recipe that I'm using is based off of a recipe from SeriousEats.com. It was originally created by Stella Parks, who's an incredible pastry chef baker in New York. You may have seen her on like Bon Appetit videos and all this stuff. She's just so good at what she does. I will say I have made a couple of slight adjustments. So if you do find her bagel recipe on Serious Eats, there will be all of the ingredients and stuff are the same, but I just do some proportions that are a little different. So I'll talk about that though. Oh yes, and thank you, Mr. DJ. He just put that in the recipe link in the chat or in the
awesome.
comments.
Yes.
That's
a good one.
So, and I will also say, if there's anyone here from Canada who's watching, these are not Montreal bagels. Montreal bagels and New York bagels are 2 very different things.
Yes.
And don't come for me. These are New York bagels. So if you're complaining that there's no eggs in it, or I didn't roast it in a fire, sorry, but that's not happening this time. Okay, let's go.
No, New York tough.
All right, so one of the super interesting things, you might be like, wait, this is bread. Why are we starting with this? So we're starting with this like pre-paste. So all this is some bread flour and some water. You might recognize this as like a tangjong method, or it's also called a yukone. But what this does is you take a proportion of the flour and water that go into the dough, and you just heat it over like medium high heat on a skillet and keep mixing constantly. And what it's going to do is the flour is going to absorb all of that water, and then some of that water is going to start cooking off, and it's going to turn into this like mashed potato consistency. And all you do is once it's done, you let it cool, and then you add it with the rest of your dough ingredients. Now, why do you do this? Number one, it helps with shelf life. So this is really great for breads that are like softer or chewier, that need to last a little longer before they go stale. This is great for it. It also helps with browning and like getting that kind of nice bakery crust around the edge. So highly recommend doing this. It's all in the recipe. So in the recipe, it is 170 grams of water with 100 grams of flour. This recipe also, bagels, it's very important to use bread flour, not AP flour, not gluten-free flour, not anything like that. Because bagels are supposed to be so chewy, they rely on a high gluten content. So the flour I've used in this actually, usually I really enjoy like King Arthur bread flour. This one I actually got from like a restaurant supply. And it's specifically bagel flour, so it's
nice.
like extra high gluten content.
Oh, that's awesome!
So I finished putting that in the pan. It became mashed potato consistency, and we're letting it just cool enough so it's not like scorching hot. So now I'm in my food processor. In my food processor, I've got flour, I've got sugar, I've got yeast, and I've got salt. That's it. We're using the food processor because the bagel dough, unlike your dough, is very stiff.
Yep.
And so it requires a lot of force to kind of get the kneading done. You can do this by hand. You can do this in a mixer. It'll just take you a very long time.
Yeah. Let the
so
machine
right now, all I'm doing is I'm just pulsing those dry ingredients just to mix them together. Okay. So they're all mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Then what were you gonna say?
Oh no, it's a great tip. Like the food processor is a great tool for bread making.
Yes, absolutely. So now this is that paste, and you can see it's like goopy and sticky and gelatinous, and this is exactly what you want. It doesn't look great right now, but it's super important. So all I'm doing is I'm putting that paste in there with the dry ingredients that I've blended together. And then I'm going to throw the lid on, and I'm going to pour the rest of the water into the dough. I believe that there is a section coming up there where I show you. Okay.
Oh, this was so cool.
Can you pause this, Mr. DJ, please? Okay. Hot tip for anybody who owns a food processor. You know the little thing that pulls out of the top of your food processor? Every single one of them will have at least one hole in the bottom of it. And you might be like, why is that hole there? I wonder what that's there for. Is it for drying? Is it for like making sure nothing gets caught? This is an intentional design, and it is a drip spout. So what happens is you put it on top. If you're adding liquid in, you pour all the liquid in right away, and then it dribbles slowly into the food processor while things are spinning around. So it evenly distributes all of the liquid.
I saw this and I was like, because I didn't know.
Isn't it incredible? Like, how would you?
Total game changer.
Yeah. And this is for anything. If you're making like a sauce or something, or I mean, any kind of thing where you need to like slowly, if you are drizzling in olive oil for something, for like pasta sauce, like game changer.
I'm so excited to use my food processor for something to make that happen. I think it's incredible. Like I watched this and I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah. I know, right? Like, it's
yeah.
incredible.
All these, there's so many weird things that you just kind of like,
And you never would have known, right?
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Really cool.
All right, let's go back to the video here.
Right.
So, yeah, those little drip spouts, I probably spent a little time explaining it. So yeah, I'm gonna put the top.
Oh, and you have two. Yeah, okay.
There we go. Yep, there we go. I'm gonna turn it on. So the paste is in there with all the dry ingredients. And then we turn it on and then just dump all the water in, bloop, and you can see it starts kind of dribbling down. So this is real time. Honestly, it takes about a minute for the dough to come together. So this is on high speed, and you can see how quickly it's starting to come together. So my food processor, as you can see, is Hamilton Beach brand, which means it's really, really cheap. And so I put, when I'm making these bagels, I mix everything at once, but then for the kneading process, I actually split it into 2 halves because I literally almost burnt out the motor. Now what I'm showing you right here is the dough has started processing, but it's not quite ready yet. And so what we need to do is keep processing it. Well, I think I'll do another test.
Oh, okay. Yes, because yes. I thought you were getting ready to explain the thing.
I thought I was too, but I need to actually see. I only watched this once. I'm not
it's fine. Yeah, me too. Yes, the technique coming up is a great
tip.
Yeah.
Hot.
It's a hot tip. No, it's
okay. Actually, can we pause, please? And then can we go back to where I was doing that? I guess we might not have actually. Okay. Yes, right there. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is what's called the window pane test. And the window pane test is the thing that Carmen is very excited about. So what the window pane test does is it's a test to show how much gluten has been developed in your dough. So right now, when you stretch it, you see it immediately kind of breaks apart and like has a hole in it, and it's kind of rough around the edges. So what that means is that it needs more kneading, it needs more processing. So what you can do is what you saw me do is kind of tear the pieces apart again and put them back into the food processor. The goal is that when you then take out a piece of the dough and stretch it, you'll be able to stretch it thin enough that you can see light pass through it without it actually breaking. Yeah. Hence a window pane.
Yeah.
I think we show, if you can fast forward a little bit to like where we were, Mr. DJ.
And there are lots of breads like the bagels, challah.
Yeah.
If you make dinner rolls, like brioche, all of those kinds of breads, you want to test for the window pane.
Yeah. Keep going.
Like, yeah.
Keep going. Yeah, here. Okay. If we can start playing again here. So as I said, I split up my dough into 2 halves. So this is on the right is the processed dough, and this is the unprocessed dough. So you can see the difference between those two. The one that's processed is so much smoother, which is now on the left-hand side. That's the one. Yeah. That's the one that has yet to be processed. So we're gonna just do the same exact thing. Yeah. Just do the same exact thing. Throw it in. It takes about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. Okay. So once that's all done, I put all of the dough together, and now I'm portioning. So this is one of those things we talked about last time about how I'm a little precise. Actually, Mr. DJ, can you pause, please? So here's how I do it. Okay. I've made this recipe a number of times, so I can tell you from memory that each of these bagels is 118 grams. But what you do is once everything is massed together, I take those 2 halves, I just kind of smoosh them together so that they're all homogeneous. I will then weigh the whole thing and get the total weight. Now, this is where I make a departure from the published recipe. Stella Parks' recipe calls you to make 8 bagels out of this dough. Personally, I find them a little puny when you make 8. So same proportions as everything, but I make 6 bagels out of this instead of 8.
Yeah.
So if there are 8 bagels, it's something like 80 something grams. With 8 bagels, it's 80 something grams. With 6, it's like 118 for each. But if you don't have the right exact amount or whatever, just weigh your whole thing, divide it into 6, and then cut those portions and weigh each one. And again, yes, I'm precise, but like if it's within a couple grams, it's okay.
I do it too. This is a thing where I actually am precise, and I
okay, good.
And I know for bagels and those kinds of things, I absolutely
rolls. I mean, anything that you have like multiple pieces of, and you want to use all of your dough. You don't want any scraps.
Yeah.
It's pretty important.
Well, you don't want like the little tiny one to burn.
Right. Totally.
So yeah. All right.
Let's get back into it. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of the technique that I'm using. Once I've got the dough portion, I kind of fold it in on itself to make a ball and pinch a little seam. And then what I'm doing right here is rolling the piece of dough on a completely unsurfaced or unfloured, ungreased surface. And the surface tension or the non-slipperiness, I forget the word for that, when you're rolling it around will seal that bottom part of the dough. So you can see I'm going to cut another piece. And then once you're ready with those, we make the bagels. We just poke a hole in it, bring them around.
And you know, like this is a great, like right here, like you're really showing how much you stretch it to make sure it's like really get that hole in there, because if you don't, it'll, and then you have a hole.
Yeah, exactly. It'll shrink right up. The other thing is like, so between the rolling on the counter step, actually, can we pause here? Between the rolling on the counter step and the making the holes in the bagel, you actually let the dough rest for about 15 minutes because it's been through a lot. And so the gluten needs to relax so that it can hold its shape. Yeah. So that's the process. I mean, you can see it's really pretty easy. You do the paste at the beginning, dry ingredients, put the paste, the water, process it, and then portion it, roll it around, let it rest, make a hole. And then once those raw bagels are good, you put them on a greased baking sheet with parchment paper, wrap them in plastic, and you stick them in the fridge immediately for 24 to 48 hours. So that's kind of a difference between our 2 types of bread too. So yours was out on the counter. It really needed to like puff up a lot and get a lot of air into it. Bagels do not. So the reason we do that is we want to develop the flavor from the yeast and like the yeast working in its chemistry as it does. But we don't want them to be puffy because bagels are supposed to be like dense and chewy. So that's why we put them in the fridge. It slows down the fermentation process. You get that great flavor, but not like huge, puffy, airy bagels.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Cold proof. A cold proof is a real thing.
So you can see, I mean, so these are the bagels that you can play. These are the bagels that have been in the fridge for 2 days. They're not that much bigger than they were when they went in. Here I'm just talking through some of the ingredients and stuff. That was the barley malt syrup. We'll get to it. I usually love an everything bagel, but I was out of everything seasoning. So we're doing poppy seed and sesame seed bagels. In that little dish there is just an egg white with some water that I've whisked together. In this pot, I just have some boiling water, about 3-4 inches of boiling water, and I'm pouring the barley malt syrup into it. So this is kind of a cool thing. Actually, if you could pause once again, Mr. DJ, thank you. So the only kind of like odd ingredient or like hard to find ingredient in here is that barley malt syrup. Barley malt syrup, you can find it, at Whole Foods or like specialty baking stores. You can order it on Amazon. What it does is it gives bagels their like very classic flavor. And it also makes them brown really nicely.
Yeah.
So highly recommend, if you can find it, to use it. However, if you cannot find it, you can use honey. You can use molasses. You can even just pour some brown sugar in there. That's it. It really, really helps bring out like that kind of bagel flavor. It makes it different from just a round bread.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
So once you put the barley malt syrup in there, we're just going to kind of stir it around so it dissolves. And then we're going to put the bagels into the water. And actually, you can hit play, please, Mr. DJ. Once we kind of get that stirred in. So the boiling water is where the bagels rise. So that's a cold bagel going in. You can see in like 30 seconds, it's just going to like look at how fat they're getting already.
Yeah, nice.
So
and you put them in cold. That's an important tip. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they were on the counter for like 5-10 minutes while I was prepping. Look at how big they are now.
Ooh.
Those are big babies.
Bagels.
So yeah, it's about a minute and a half on each side. This also helps get like a really nice kind of crackly crust on the outside.
Yeah.
And this is where the bagels do most of their rising. You can see how much bigger they are. Just kind of turn them over and then we'll pull them out of the water. I actually do not recommend using tongs for this. I would rather use like a basket just because I don't want to ruin them, but I was limited in what I had. So
I've used a chopstick before too.
Yeah.
Mm.
Pulling those out, and then I'm going to season. Look at the difference between the hot ones and the cold ones. I mean, the cold ones are so much smaller. So yeah, I'm going to put those 3 in. And then while those are boiling, I'm just going to do an egg white wash around the outside of the bagels, and then put the seeds on. So I decided to do 2 plain, 2 poppy, 2 sesame. If you're vegan or you don't want to do this, the egg wash is not necessary. What I find it does is it helps the seeds stick much better. You can just put them on the kind of warm bagels that are
totally
water on it, but this really does help make them stick. And it also helps with browning, and it also makes them a little extra crackly on the outside.
Yeah.
So personally, even if I'm making all plain bagels, I'm still a fan of putting that egg white wash.
Yeah.
And again, that's just like 1 egg white and a tablespoon of water, whisk it up, and that's it. You can put a little salt in there if you want to add a little flavor. If your seasonings aren't that salty. But yeah, that's it. Once those are boiled and I've got the seeds on there, we're just going to pop them into the oven. I believe it's at 450 degrees. I'm looking at the recipe. 425. So my oven's preheating, and it's about, 25 minutes?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and poppy seeds and sesame seeds are not hard to find, but that's Trader Joe's Everything Bagel Seasoning. Ooh, that's some good stuff.
It is so good. I love it. Everything. So yeah, we're just going to toss them right in.
I can't wait.
The reveal. Look at that! Oh my God. They're so like crackly and bubbly. Look at like the skin on the outside. It's like all bubbled.
Oh, it's perfect.
Crispy. Honestly, I love these bagels so much.
I want to make them right now. I could make them. I could make them tonight and then bake them tomorrow.
Bake them on like Tuesday morning.
Oh, I couldn't do it tomorrow, like for the breakfast at nighttime.
Oh yeah, if it's tomorrow night, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be tomorrow night.
Yeah, then that would work. You really do want to put them in the fridge for a
long time.
A solid 24 hours if you can. And then here we are. They've cooled down, and I just am going to show you kind of cutting into them what they look like.
Oh, and I see.
Obsessed.
You got some cream cheese. I see an onion. Are you gonna?
So usually when I make these, because like I will say everyone who makes baking videos is like, oh, everything's so easy. It's kind of easy, but it takes some time. Yeah. So look at those insides. I will say there are a couple of holes that are a little bigger than I wanted them to be, but you know, still not bad.
More space for cream cheese. Oh, those are so gorgeous.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, that's a great bagel.
Yeah.
I just saw in the chat, Dylan, that someone asked if they were sourdough.
Oh, these are not sourdough. These are just regular yeast bagels.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, I was saying I usually will do it all out. I will do the cream cheese. I will do smoked salmon. I will do like tomatoes, cucumbers. But I didn't have anything, and so I just had cream cheese and some red onion. But honestly, so good. Thank you, Becker Mania. Just like it's like soft and chewy and like a little crackly on the outside and like full of cream cheese and like my mouth is watering right now.
No,
I want one. I've eaten all of them already since we filmed this, but I want them now.
Yeah, I only had popcorn for lunch, so I'm really like hungry.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, that's bread.
That's bread. I mean, we're gonna have to let's be honest, we're gonna have to do more bread because there's so much bread in the world. Honestly,
there is. Yeah, it's wild. But I love that we were able to show kind of two different sides of bread. You know, our ingredient list was kind of the same. I mean, you had a few different kinds of flours. I just had one, but it's, flour, yeast, salt, water.
Makes bread.
Bing, bang, boom.
And time.
Yes, and time.
A little bit of time.
Yeah.
Just need a little bit of time.
So, I mean, yeah, that's bread.
I think, and I think that it's something that anyone can do. Baking bread is not an expensive process. You don't need a lot of fancy things. Even if you don't have a cast iron oven like that, you can still make that type of a loaf of bread. You can put absolutely worth the wait.
Yes.
You can put a pan of water in the bottom of your oven and just bake it on a cookie sheet. Or if you have a baking stone, there's lots of different variables. And I think that, something that has happened a lot in the time of COVID is a lot of people have been exploring bread baking. And I know that you and I both have fielded a lot of questions surrounding that. The whole sourdough thing, that's a whole other situation.
That's a whole other beast.
That's a whole other beast that generally I don't have time for. But I mean, I don't you have to baby it and it doesn't, that's a whole other thing. But I think that it's definitely something that everybody can try and should. It's such a satisfying, stress relieving thing to make.
Yeah, I mean, your beautiful bread that you had, you didn't even really need any fancy equipment or literally your hands,
hands in a bowl.
Yeah, that's great.
So and it's worth the wait, and it's worth it's worth the process, and it gives an appreciation for ingredients, or just how what bakeries do. I mean, I don't know, just there's a lot that goes into bread. We'll have to have more episodes about.
Yeah, for sure.
Kinds.
I mean, you are passionate about bread. It is a real thing.
Yeah,
I like bread. It's not my number one
I feel
baking adventure. I feel like yours it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a lot of feelings.
Yeah,
a lot of strong feelings.
Well, this was so fun.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we get to hang out together, and thank you everyone who's watching or will watch.
Yeah. And when's our next episode will be
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Now.
Yeah. So October 11th. Is it October 11th?
Yeah, October 11th.
Yeah.
We are doing pies and pastry, right?
Or pies and tarts.
Pies and tarts.
Yeah, pies and tarts.
So that's gonna be super
pastry will
fun.
be a whole other thing. But yes, pies and tarts. Get ready for it.
Cool. Well, I can't wait to see you. We will see you on October 11th, 3 p.m. And thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.